just now. We've had yes and no agreements and disagreements, but of late he started agreeing with me. So I will not ask him a tough question. My benchmark these days is that I ask that which cricket team you're supporting. If anybody says that they're not supporting Mumbai Indian, I ask a tough question. So which Mumbai?
I support Mumbai Indians.
Okay, so easy questions for you.
Okay.
FIs are back. How long do you think they'll stay in India? That's a very easy question. Everybody has a view on it.
Yeah. So, Nikunj, 40%. So net, my understanding is it's not a transparent bucket, but I think 40% comes from US, but rest of the 60% FI money in India is largely APAC and Middle East and Europe, right? So from a US perspective, I mean, I still stay skeptical. One, on the level of rupee. It seems new RBI regime is also kind of protecting the level of rupee, which kind of eventually is not good in the long term. But they might have a plan, right? Other than that, I think, Nikunj, I continue to believe that the disturbance that the Trump regime is creating in the world is going to be eventually beneficial for US, at least in the medium term. 10 years down the line, alternative to dollar, nobody knows. But it is going to be bad for Europe, and it is going to be challenging for rest of the world. And in that sense, I mean, FIs will come and go. I mean, they still have 15, 16%. But I think if you look at the trend from 2014, they were at 23%. Now they're at like 15%. On the margins, they can buy and sell, but looks like the overall trend is down because the emerging market basket is kind of not in thing, at least not in US, right? So that's what I believe. But ultimately, well, the market needs a buyer and a seller, right? Somebody's got to buy. Looks like this time retail is buying and everybody else seems to be selling, right? Including promoters and IPOs and other than things like that. So that's where I stand. I don't think it's going to be a major trend change for India as of now, right? At least for 2025, Nikunj.
Right. So if it's going to be a little, flip-flop of a ride for emerging markets, I'm guessing, Anurag, what does it mean really for India, this tariff regime? Should it be implemented come April 2nd?
Yeah. So Aisha, it's just a matter of 40 billion, right? It's not a big, I guess India is already giving those concessions, right? So India is, in terms of ignored services. By the way, I didn't know that, the 33 billion services that India exports, but what US exports to India, half of that is actually travel to US. That's an interesting bit, by the way, about 12 billion, right? So that's US exporting services to India. Add to that some education that our kids get here. So that's one. But on the good side, it's a 80 and a 40, right? That's the 40 billion gap. I think India will make those concessions. It's not a big deal. India is not the target. I've always believed that eventually it is India's battle to win in manufacturing if it can, right? And whatever share it can take. But it is going to hit China, Mexico, Canada, and Russia. Those are the bigger targets as far as the current regime is concerned. So that, in that sense, I think it is an opportunity for India, and it's a big positive. When I said emerging markets, I meant as a basket and not specific that they'll not be India focused. So that's what I believe. But by the way, Aisha, if I can make a point, I heard all the speakers who were saying, oh, they're negative US and very kind of positive all the other markets. My sense is it's actually exactly the contrary. Imagine Europe growing just at 1% and having to forcefully spend so much on defense. That's a kind of a dead money, right? And in that sense, I don't understand how their physical math will kind of run. So that's my concern. I still believe with some disturbance, US is kind of going to be the market to be, 2025 and beyond. Aisha, that's what I believe.
Okay. I just missed the last part. You said that US could be the market of 2025.
Yeah. So I'll give you the lens, Nikunj. See, the point is, we understand there's disturbance, but here is the context. And I think this was very beautifully described by Scott Bessent last week on a podcast. So US is collecting 18% of GDP in taxes, about 5 trillion, and it is spending 24% of GDP, which is about 6.7 trillion. Now, here is the math. I understand Dodge and all, everything is there, but the catch is if Dodge cuts the spending from 6.7 trillion to like say 1 trillion, that is 3% of GDP. So if the government stops spending 300 billion, that is 3%. So they're going to go slow on that. That's the plan from Scott Bessent. And they're going to deleverage government and re-leverage the private sector. In that sense, they're going to deregulate and, promote the private sector more. So with that sense, I'm saying that with this, once this hiccup is gone, within first quarter two, US economy will be like, the bull with no leash, right? So it will be, that's a pretty good stuff, eventually for US companies. So we just got to wait. But ultimately, the plan is to grow the economy at 3% and stop the wasteful spending gradually, not quickly. So that gives me a lot of hope that, there is a good sense prevailing in the current administration, and they have a plan. But, if you're coming from a high government spending to a moderate spending, it has its kind of short-term tremors. So that's how I believe, right? Ultimately, it's advantage US and disadvantage for Europe and rest of the economies. That's kind of a given. That's how I see it, Nikunj. I don't know whether that's we agree on this or not, but that's for another time.
That's for some other time. We don't agree. That's all right. I think India will do better than US, but let's see. Let's see.
Oh, no, that could always be there.
Yes. That is what matters.
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Appreciate your time. But I'm
Okay,
reading the
thank
book you gave me. I'm reading the book you gave me. Just starting it. So I'll share my notes with you next time.
Thank you. By the way, let me also plug in the Economic Times article I wrote today. So the bull is a bit tired, so it's resting. So let it rest a bit.
Okay.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you very much. Kunal Bothra is not in a mood to rest.
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.